Hi, my name is Corme, and in this video I'm going to give some initial reactions to the changes that were announced for Preservation Evoker in 10.2, and I'm mostly going to be focusing on how I think it's going to affect raid. I'll talk a tiny bit about Mythic Plus. So before I get into it, I do want to go over just the changes that happened. So the first initial changes that were going to be announced, and there was broad changes for all healers, was in this Morgan Day and Scarsborough interview that was done. It was posted over on Icy Veins, and basically it was announced on Tuesday when they announced 10.2, the broad healing changes are being made. There are discrepancies between healing and raid versus Mythic Plus. As a result, the team looked at healing as a whole, and they're increasing the power of single target healing and looking at big cooldowns and AoE healing. This is something that if you've been following the healer YouTube space for a while now, a lot of bigger creators have also complained that raid basically just feels like you were just chaining large CD after large CD. There's always a CD to cover some event, and it just feels like you're playing whack-a-mole, and healers are just too powerful, and it's not fun when you're this powerful, especially when you're healing farm, but also even during prog, because there weren't actually crazy damage checks on any of the fights, so you could actually not necessarily overheal, but most fights felt pretty dang safe, I'd say, during prog. And then to ensure decision-based healing instead of pushing your highest input AoE spell, they're making some pretty significant mana adjustments. So yesterday we got a huge list of changes for every single healer. The preservation list was actually quite short compared to some of the other healers, but we're going to go into those. So we got some changes for the spec that goes along with what they said, where they want to have us do more single target healing versus AoE healing, and then we also got our tier set revealed. So I'm going to talk about both those things. So we play Preservation Evoker, you know that our only single target heal that we really have is Living Flame, and that button sucks to press, absolutely sucks to press. So when I saw this, I was pretty excited because that to me feels like one of the biggest struggles of Preservation is a single target healing. You could feel it a lot on a fight like Magmax this tier, where when the spittles would go out, you would require a good amount of single target healing to keep them safe, and as an evoker you were just sitting there with all of your echoes out and just nothing I can do. I just have to sit there and watch them die, because otherwise I'm gonna proc the 10 echoes I have out, and my Living Flame isn't gonna do anything and stuff like that. So you really had to rely on other healers in order to make up for that. And I especially think if you've been doing Mythic Plus this season as Preservation Evoker, you felt it. Season 1, your discrepancies were kind of made up for by the fact that reversion healing was pretty good, as well as the fact that Prop Paladin was there to do a lot of the spot healing, and there was so much off healing in the meta comp most of the time, especially when you're running with a Prop Paladin, that you didn't always feel as bad about the single target healing, and there also wasn't as many single target spot healing needed mechanics, I would say, in Season 1, and also in the raid for Vault compared to now. So those are kind of the struggles that I think that Preservation Evoker has, and when I saw this I thought, at least for Preservation Evoker, these are probably going to be some good changes. Okay, now that I've talked about that, let's talk about the actual changes that we got. So Spirit Bloom healing increased by 25%. So to me, Spirit Bloom is kind of like a spot heal in many ways. So that's kind of one way to think about it, especially in Mythic Plus, sometimes you will just one charge it to heal your Tink or something. It's better than pressing a Living Flame, certainly, at least in the current tuning, to do it that way. So, and that also kind of offsets the fact that we don't have the 2 set going forward that we had this time, where you got the hot portion of Spirit Bloom, which is another 40%. So it was an interesting choice to me. I'll say that. I didn't expect them to buff Spirit Bloom or Dream Breath. In fact, I was expecting to nurse those things, and they went a direction different than what I thought. Living Flame healing increased by 20%. This is kind of a no-brainer. Like I said, this is our only single target heal. The only heal we even have real control over who it goes on, other than Echo and Reversion. So that one is pretty good. If you need to do spot healing, having that. Verdant Embrace healing increased by 35%, and it's kind of whatever to me, something I can only press every 20 seconds, and it's also just usually something that I need to do as a setup global anyways. It's not really something that you're gonna do when damage is going out necessarily. It's something you're doing oh, damage is gonna go out soon, so I'm gonna Verdant Embrace so that when I can Dream Breath, it's gonna be buffed. It feels more of a button like that than it does oh, I need to spot heal this person. Kind of a bit different in Mythic Plus, but for raid, it's an alright buff. And then the big ones are on the bottom here, and they are Resonating Sphere applies Echo only to the first 3 allies it hits. So this is a pretty significant buff. If you remember, the 10.7 patch originally nerfed from 6 to 4, and we really hated that, and then this patch came out and they bumped up to 5, so it's really interesting to see them going back down to 3. Not a huge fan of the change, but I kind of like, it seems really clear by like the constant changes they're making that they just do not like the Resonating Sphere playstyle and they're trying to move away from it. And then Cycle of Life now accumulates only 10% instead of 15% of your healing. And then the healing over like the period that it collects during is only 8 seconds to 10. So this is like at least like a 40% nerf, I'd say, to Cycle of Life healing. Not the biggest carrier of your HPS instead of the Emerald like Blossom build, but it is a pretty significant carrier, so it is a pretty decent hit to that playstyle. Okay, I don't want to talk too much about this because how this affects everything is going to depend on the playstyle you play, because there are a few different ways, like especially like this tier, we've seen a couple ways that people have played Evoker. And so the new tier set is going to kind of segue into how I interpret this stuff. Okay, so on to the set bonuses. So the first time I read these set bonuses, I was pretty unhappy, but after some experimenting and kind of thinking about it some more, I actually don't think it's that bad, and I think it's going to actually just like kind of make one of our playstyles like better than it was this previous year. So the 2 set bonus is Empower Spells cast Living Flames at enemies or allies struck at 40% effectiveness. Sorry. So basically every single time you press Spirit Bloom, it's going to also Living Flame whoever got hit by it. And whoever you cast Dream Breath on, it's going to Living Flame whoever you did that on. And it's capped at 5 targets. So let's say you only one charge a Spirit Bloom and you echo those other people. So it can go up to 5 Living Flames or something. But like Dream Breath, even if you echo it, it's only going to do 5 unless you're not hitting 5 to begin with. So that's one way to think about it. So there is limited use for it. What this basically means is Living Flame, 40% of it is like on current, like eye level on PTR, it's usually like a 30k hit on top of your Empower spell. And then what we really care about though is it's a lot of Essence Burst. Like it's a lot of free Essence Burst, and the playstyle this is probably going to lean into is going to be an Emerald Blossom build, which heavily relies on you just wanting to farm those Essence Bursts. The way you do that in the current tier Emerald Blossom build is to put out Resonating Sphere and then echo your Living Flames. Now that is one, both mana costly, and also two, not going to work as well because now your Resonating Sphere is only going to be putting out 3 Living Flames. And also we're gonna be a lot more mana hungry going into next year because they're getting rid of, they're like nerfing your shocks a lot, and the way that they put the wording in that original post that we were looking at, wherever it is, okay, I don't have it open, oh well, they want us to have to think about mana more, so I would not expect another trinket like that to carry your mana. So this is a pretty big deal for the playstyle, like of playing Emerald Blossom, in order to be able to just like have so many extra Essence Bursts all the time. And then the 4 set bonus is not as good. So Living Flame has a chance to apply Echo at 100% effectiveness on allies healed, or if a nearby ally doesn't have Echo. So what that means is like, if you are casting like Living Flame on an enemy, like you're just casting on the boss, it can put echoes on allies like around the boss. So like you don't have to like keep casting Living Flame on allies in order for it to proc the echoes, and you don't want to do that because if you're casting Living Flame on allies, remember it costs twice as much mana to cast on an ally as it does on the enemy, and also healer damage matters. So all in all, this is really leaning towards a Emerald Blossom playstyle. That is both good and bad because Emerald Blossom, if you've looked at logs, has so much potential to do a lot of healing. However, it heavily incentivizes you being stacked, and it also really gets away from what they said originally, which was that they want healers to have more like single target healing. And leaning into this Emerald Blossom playstyle, which actually you have very little like choice over who you're healing with this playstyle for the most part, because the playstyle mostly just evolves around you pressing Emerald Blossom on yourself on cooldown because you want to make sure it's going on someone who's stacked with the group and you always know the position of your character. And then you're mostly just going to be Living Flaming the boss, and then you're just be pressing Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom on cooldown. You can choose to play Resonating Sphere, though I'm not sure that you're going to. I don't think, my prediction is that you won't be playing it. And what that basically means is that like all of your healing is smart healing, and it's all just like really small bursts of like healing that just like tickles, basically. Like it adds up to a lot. Looks really good on the meter, but as far as like it being meaningful healing, I think it's pretty bad as a playstyle. And I think that that was a lot of reasons why I didn't choose to, and outside of a shock, you didn't see many healers choosing to play that playstyle even though it was good HPS on several bosses this tier. So that is something to keep in mind. That is where my first thought goes, is it like this makes the Emerald Blossom playstyle, which is already a lot of HPS, much better, but I don't think that playstyle is good to begin with. I don't think you have a lot of choice. I think especially like on a fight like Echo of Neltharion, where like echoing the Spirit Bloom onto the targets that had heart was really good for like saving people and doing those kinds of things and choosing to like heal priority targets and stuff like that. This playstyle is going to struggle with. As far as this 4-set bonus goes, I'm not a huge fan of this because in our current playstyle, you are normally echoing Spirit Bloom or Dream Breath. If you are playing Blossoms, you are most likely 90% of the time going to end up just echoing a Blossom, which isn't that great. I know you're thinking like, oh, well, I could still echo Spirit Bloom and I could still echo like Dream Breath and stuff like that, but you don't ever just sit there and sit on your hands when you're playing Emerald Blossom. Like you are just like, especially like you're getting these, like, it's like whenever you cast a Spirit Bloom, that's when you're casting the Living Flames on everyone. And that's when you're putting out the echoes. And now you have Spirit Bloom on cooldown. And so you also have like Dream Breath on cooldown. You don't have anything to press. You're most likely 90% of your echoes are just going to get consumed by Emerald Blossom. There's no way you're just going to sit on your hands and wait for your next Dream Breath or Spirit Bloom for the next 20 seconds. Like that's just not how it's going to go. You could also use those echoes on like a reversion, like a life bind, like, but like setting up like mini ramps and stuff like that inside an Emerald Blossom playstyle isn't that good. There's talk of people wanting to do a build with like stasis, because also the empower spells that you store in your stasis do release the Living Flames, so that's an option. However, my gut instinct, and I won't know like how this completely is until we get into PTR. My cat is again changing buttons, is that I think we will be wearing our old 2-set and the new 2-set. So the old 2-set is super powerful. Like they're buffing Spirit Bloom by another 30%. And what makes the 2-set so powerful is that it buffs another 40, like it applies a hot for 40% of the healing that Spirit Bloom does. It's also just like the 15% Dream Breath healing. And I really don't think you're getting a lot of value out of the echoes that are being applied from your 4-set. I think it allows you to choose better statted pieces that are high in mastery and not in verse, because there are quite a few pieces like that are like statted. It's these ones over here. They're statted kind of weird, like the legs and stuff like that you wouldn't like to wear, though that's kind of like a minimal choice. But I do think that just wearing like the old 2-piece and just having like buff Spirit Bloom and buff Dream Breath and then wearing the other 2-piece, which is powerful, is going to be the best choice, and that the 4-piece is pretty lackluster. And if you're wondering, the 4-piece proc rate for applying an echo on the people who got hit by Living Flame is about 20%. So it's not super duper high. It's the same, it's like the same amount of like chance as you getting an Essence Burst from Living Flame. So think of it that way, like how often do you get an Essence Burst from casting Living Flame? That's how often you'll get an echo applied to someone. And I just don't think there's like realistically going to be, like, I don't think it'll be bad to play the 4-set, but I do think there's a world where playing 2-set is going to be a lot better, and that is going to be my like choice going in. There's also like a lot of debate over, I haven't even like busted my talons on this, over like how you would play this, and like one choice that you could make is to just basically, what am I doing? Sorry, it's been a while. I should have set this up before. I don't really care about that. And then just going down here into Cycle of Life. So like this is like one possible thing to do, and the biggest advantage of this is that if you were playing this way, like you aren't casting TA, you're just like basically like relying on just like Living Flame and stuff like that, is that you get to do so much damage. And that should not go unnoticed, because Evoker, like as a class, so far this expansion has canonically in raid always been the lowest damage. We just don't bring like a lot of like outside fire breathing every 30 seconds. We just aren't bringing a lot of damage. We've always struggled on that. And this playstyle is essentially like very simple and effective and does good damage, and you don't have to overthink it. And I think in like a prog environment, this is like the kind of build that I'm leaning towards playing. You could also go for something like still playing like Sphere, and you can play like Nosdormus, or you can play Resonating. Like there is a place for no Zormus because you're like the more you're casting your empower spells, and if you're still wearing your old 2-piece, or if you're not, either way, then you're getting living flame proc from it. You're getting more essence burst, which means you're getting more emerald blossoms and stuff like that. You could also still play, like I said, like there are people talking about still playing stasis, which it's hard to say because like here's the thing, like if there is a fight that is like really spread out and you're gonna play Evoker on it, you probably don't want to play Emerald Blossom. So like there's definitely like a world where you like, even if you're thinking like, wow, I really like the Emerald Blossom playstyle and this 4-set 2-set leans into it, you still won't be prepared to have to like play that old like kind of playstyle, which it wouldn't be terrible for. Like you're getting like a lot of free echoes. I saw some people cooking some things with like, they were doing this and they were playing like something. I'm just gonna take this, it's not like this exactly, but anyways. I'm like overcooking myself while I'm trying to do this. I hate how like when you mess up once and you unclick it, it redoes like everything. Basically like something like this, where like they were thinking like, oh, I'm gonna play Emerald Blossom, but I'm not gonna play like Cycle of Life, but I'm also gonna play Resonating Sphere. I'm gonna play Stasis. To me, this looks way too overcomplicated. Like you don't have enough globals, you don't have enough mana to like make it look good. And I don't suspect something like this would be good. I think spending stuff on blossoms without playing Cycle of Life is just a mistake. But again, like there's a lot of possibilities with this 2-set 4-set. Like I said, when I first saw it, I was not like really excited. I was like really disappointed. But after like 5 minutes of thinking about it and looking at all the stuff you could do with it, with like all the procs and stuff you get and how it like interacts with everything, I think it's actually super interesting. And I'm excited to see what our playstyle is. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I know I'm gonna get a lot of people telling me how stupid I am, but those are just my initial takes. And then I'll be testing all this stuff on PTR and like releasing videos as that goes on, just trying out the stuff that I talked about in this video. Maybe it'll be good, or maybe it'll be absolutely horrible. We'll see. Thank you.